The old car trembled under the cold November wind. Inside, a young man slept curled up in the back seat, covered only by a worn jacket that had seen better days. His breath formed small clouds in the frozen air. The windows were foggy, hiding what was happening inside from curious eyes walking through the university parking lot. George Patterson stood there, motionless, his expensive coat hanging perfectly on his shoulders. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from something far worse. He had driven 2 hours from his mansion in Greenwich to surprise his grandson with lunch. What he found instead made his heart stop. Tyler, his grandson, sleeping in a car like someone who had nowhere else to go. 2 years ago, George had bought that apartment as a gift for Tyler's 18th birthday. A stunning $2 million property in a prime location near campus, fully paid, so his grandson could focus on his studies without worries. It was more than just a place to live. It was an investment in Tyler's future, a symbol of George's love and belief in him. George could still remember the joy in Tyler's eyes that day, the tight hug, the whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa." And now, this. George knocked softly on the window. The boy woke up startled, his eyes wide with panic before recognizing the familiar face. He quickly opened the door, forcing a smile that didn't reach his tired eyes. "Grandpa?" "What? What are you doing here?" "I came to see you, son. I thought we could grab lunch together." George tried to keep his voice steady. "But first, I'd love to see the apartment again. How are you enjoying it?" Tyler's face went completely pale. His fingers gripped the car door so tight his knuckles turned white. "The apartment? Oh yeah, it's great, really great. It's just that I wasn't expecting visitors today. It's kind of messy and Tyler." George's voice was gentle but firm. "Where is the apartment I gave you?" The silence between them felt heavy. A lie was forming in the space where truth should be. George could see it in his grandson's eyes, the same eyes that used to light up with honesty when he was a little boy. Something was terribly wrong, and George Patterson was about to discover a betrayal that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his own family. Before we continue this story, let me ask you something. From which city are you watching us right now, and what time is it there? I love seeing how far these stories reach. And if you're someone who values stories that touch the heart, we invite you to support us. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. Together, we can bring hope to those who need it most. Tyler's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stood beside his grandfather's luxury sedan in the parking lot, feeling smaller than he'd felt in months. The November wind cut through his thin jacket, but that wasn't why he was trembling. "Get in," George said quietly. "We're going to see that apartment." "Grandpa, I really think today isn't a good time. I have class in 20 minutes and—" "Tyler." George's voice carried a weight that made the young man fall silent. "I drove 2 hours to see you. Get in the car." Tyler climbed into the passenger seat, his mind racing through possible excuses, possible lies, possible ways to make this nightmare stop. The leather seats felt too soft, too warm, too much like everything he'd lost. George started the engine and turned to his grandson. "Where to?" "Maple Street, number 42. The lie came out automatically, smooth as glass. Tyler had practiced it so many times in his head during sleepless nights in the back of his Honda. He knew the address existed. He'd checked on a map weeks ago, preparing for exactly this moment. They drove in silence. Tyler watched the familiar streets pass by, each turn bringing them closer to the truth he couldn't say out loud. His stomach twisted into knots. The address he'd given was real, but the apartment wasn't his. It belonged to someone else, someone who actually had a home. George's fingers drummed against the steering wheel. He wasn't a fool. He'd built a business empire by reading people, by sensing when numbers didn't add up, when stories had holes. And right now, everything about his grandson's body language screamed deception. They pulled up to a modern building with glass doors and a doorman standing outside. Tyler's heart nearly stopped. This was worse than he'd imagined. The building was too nice, too real, too impossible to fake his way through. "This is it?" George asked, studying the structure. "Yeah. Top floor." Tyler's voice barely worked. They walked toward the entrance. The doorman smiled politely. George nodded back. Tyler felt like he was walking toward his own ending, each step heavier than the last. What would happen when they got upstairs? When they knocked on a door and a stranger answered? When his grandfather's face shifted from confusion to understanding to disappointment? The elevator ride felt eternal. Tyler stared at the numbers lighting up as they climbed. 3, 4, 5. His reflection in the metal doors looked hollow-eyed and desperate. When had he started looking so tired? When had the weight of secrets carved shadows under his eyes? The doors opened on the 8th floor. George stepped out first, waiting for Tyler to lead the way. The hallway stretched before them, silent and carpeted in deep burgundy. Tyler's feet moved on their own, carrying him toward apartment 8C, toward the collision of his lie with reality. He stopped in front of the door. His hand lifted to knock, then froze in midair. "Tyler," George said softly, "look at me." Tyler turned. His grandfather's eyes weren't angry. They were sad, deeply, profoundly sad. "This isn't your apartment, is it?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Tyler's throat closed. He wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, to keep running from the truth. But standing there in that hallway, exhausted and ashamed, and so incredibly tired of lying, something inside him broke. "No," he whispered. "It's not." George nodded slowly, as if he'd known all along. "Where is the apartment I gave you, the one on Riverside Drive?" Tyler's eyes burned. "It's gone." "Gone? What do you mean, gone? Did something happen to the building?" "Mom sold it." The confession tumbled out before Tyler could stop it. 8 months ago. She needed the money, and she had the papers. The deed was in her name too, because I was underage when you bought it, and she just sold it. George's face went completely still, not angry, not shocked, just frozen, like a man who'd been punched so hard his body hadn't registered the pain yet. "She sold a $2 million apartment," George repeated slowly, "without telling me. I begged her not to. I told her you'd find out, that this was wrong, but she said she had debts, that she was in trouble, that if she didn't pay people back, something bad would happen." Tyler's words rushed out now, desperate and raw. "She promised it was temporary. She said she'd buy me another place in a few months. She said you'd never have to know." "And you believed her?" Tyler's silence was answer enough. George walked to the window at the end of the hallway, staring out at the city below. His shoulders were rigid, his breathing controlled. Tyler had seen that stance before. It was how his grandfather looked when making impossible business decisions, when choosing between bad options and worse ones. "How long have you been living in your car?" George asked without turning around. 6 months. 6 months. George's voice cracked slightly. "My grandson has been sleeping in a car for half a year, and I didn't know. I didn't see it. I didn't..." He turned around, and Tyler saw something he'd never seen before. Tears in his grandfather's eyes. "Why didn't you call me?" "Because she's your daughter," Tyler said. "Because I didn't want to be the reason you two stopped talking again. You barely speak as it is. I didn't want to make it worse. So you sacrificed yourself instead. I'm handling it. I have jobs, 3 of them. I shower at the gym. I eat. I go to class. I'm managing." "Managing?" George's voice rose for the first time. "Tyler, you're 19 years old. You should be worried about exams and friends and finding yourself, not about where you'll sleep tonight or how you'll afford your next meal. This isn't managing. This is surviving." "And you shouldn't have to just survive." Tyler looked away, blinking hard against the tears threatening to fall. "I didn't know what else to do." George crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides and pulled his grandson into a tight hug. Tyler stiffened at first, then crumbled, his face pressing against his grandfather's shoulder as 2 years of held-back emotion finally broke free. "You should have called me," George whispered fiercely. "You should have told me the first day. I would have fixed this. I would have helped you. I'm sorry," Tyler choked out. "I'm so sorry." They stood there in that empty hallway, an old man and a young one, holding on to each other while the world kept spinning outside. Somewhere below, car horns honked. Somewhere above, footsteps echoed. But in that moment, there was only grief and relief tangled together, complicated and messy and real. Finally, George pulled back, his hands gripping Tyler's shoulders. "Here's what's going to happen. You're coming home with me today, right now. We're going to get whatever belongings you have in that car, and you're going to stay in Greenwich until we figure this out." "Grandpa, I can't just leave. I have work tonight and classes tomorrow, and—" "You can, and you will. I'll handle your jobs, I'll handle your classes, and I'm going to have a conversation with your mother that's long overdue." George's expression hardened. "But first, I need you safe. I need you fed. I need you rested." "Can you let me do that?" Tyler wanted to argue. He wanted to insist he was fine, that he didn't need charity, that he could handle his own problems. But the truth was simpler and harder. He was exhausted. He was so tired of pretending everything was okay when nothing was okay. He was tired of being cold at night and hungry during the day and scared all the time that someone would find out, that his shame would become public knowledge. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." George's face softened with relief. "Good. Now let's get out of here." They walked back to the elevator together. As the doors closed, Tyler caught his reflection again, still tired, still hollow-eyed. But something had shifted. For the first time in months, he wasn't carrying his burden alone. The ride down was quiet. When they reached the lobby, the doorman held the door open. George thanked him. Tyler followed his grandfather into the cold November air, toward the car that had been his only home, toward the beginning of something he didn't quite understand yet. Behind them, the building stood tall and indifferent, full of people living their normal lives, unaware that in their hallway a secret had finally been spoken aloud. And sometimes, speaking the truth is the first step toward finding your way home. From which city are you watching us? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from you. The mansion felt different than Tyler remembered. He'd been here countless times as a child, running through the hallways during holidays, hiding behind curtains during family gatherings, eating cookies in the enormous kitchen while his grandmother told him stories. But that was before the distance, before his parents' troubled marriage ended, before his mother stopped bringing him to visit. Now, standing in the marble foyer with nothing but a backpack containing his entire life, Tyler felt like a stranger in a palace. "Your old room is ready," George said, setting his keys on the entrance table. "Nothing's changed. I kept it exactly how you left it." Tyler followed his grandfather up the curved staircase, his footsteps echoing against hardwood floors. When George opened the bedroom door, Tyler's breath caught. It was true. Everything was frozen in time. The same blue comforter on the bed, the same posters of basketball players on the walls, the same collection of model cars lined up on the shelf, gathering years of dust. "You kept it," Tyler whispered. "Of course I kept it. This is your home. It's always been your home." George's voice carried a gentle firmness. "I'll let you settle in. There are fresh towels in the bathroom. Take a shower, get some rest. We'll talk more after you've slept." But before George could leave, Tyler's voice stopped him. "Grandpa, thank you." George turned back, his expression soft. "You don't have to thank me for doing what should have been done months ago. Rest, Tyler. You're safe now." The door closed with a quiet click. Tyler stood alone in the room, surrounded by memories of a simpler time. His legs felt weak. The bed looked impossibly inviting. When was the last time he'd slept on an actual mattress? When was the last time he'd felt warm all the way through? He sat down slowly, testing the softness. Then he lay back, staring at the ceiling. And for the first time in 6 months, Tyler allowed himself to stop fighting. His body sank into the bed like a man who'd been drowning finally finding shore. Within minutes he was asleep, a deep, dreamless sleep that his exhausted mind desperately needed. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, painting the room in shifting shades of gold and amber. Tyler didn't stir. His body was making up for months of broken sleep in cold cars, of waking up every hour to check if he was safe, of never fully resting. Downstairs, George sat in his study, staring at his phone. Jenny's number glowed on the screen, his daughter, his only child. The little girl who used to climb into his lap and ask him to read bedtime stories. The woman who now sold her son's home without a word. He pressed call. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Dad, this is a surprise. Is everything okay?" Her voice sounded cheerful, light, completely normal. George's jaw tightened. How could she sound so casual when her son had been living in a car? "I found Tyler today," George said evenly. A pause. "Oh? That's nice. Did you two have lunch?" "I found him sleeping in his car in a university parking lot, Jenny." The silence that followed was different, heavy, guilty. "Dad, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why my grandson has been homeless for 6 months while you've been cashing checks I send for his expenses?" George's voice remained calm, but something cold lived underneath. "Can you explain why you sold a $2 million apartment I gave to Tyler without telling me?" "I was going to tell you. I just needed time to what? Time to gamble away more money? Time to lie to me again?" George stood up, pacing the length of his study. "I know about the debts, Jenny. Tyler told me everything." "Tyler doesn't understand. It's complicated. I made some mistakes, yes, but I was trying to fix them. The apartment sale was supposed to solve everything, but then what? The money disappeared into more games, more bets, more promises you couldn't keep." Jenny's breath hitched on the other end. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I have a problem, Dad. I know I do. I've known for a while. I just didn't know how to stop." "So you took it out on your son instead. You let him suffer while you chased the next win." George sat back down, suddenly feeling very old. "Do you have any idea what you've done to him? He works 3 jobs, Jenny. He eats 1 meal a day if he's lucky. He showers at a gym. He sleeps in a car that's falling apart. And he did all of this to protect you, to keep your secret from me." "I never wanted him to—" Jenny's voice broke. "I never wanted any of this. I told him to tell you. I told him to ask for help, but he refused. He said he could handle it." "He's 19. He shouldn't have to handle anything like this." George's composure cracked slightly. "He's a child, Jenny. Your child. And instead of protecting him, you used him." Silence stretched between them. George could hear soft crying on the other end of the line. "What do you want me to say?" Jenny whispered finally. "I want you to get help. Real help. Not promises. Not, 'I'll try.' And I want you in a program with professionals, addressing this before it destroys what's left of your life." George's voice softened marginally. "You're my daughter. I love you. But I won't watch you drag Tyler down with you. And if I refuse, then you'll do it without my financial support. Every dollar I've sent you goes into a trust for Tyler now. Every payment, every check, everything. It goes to him, not through you." George paused. "But if you get help, if you commit to real recovery, I'll pay for the treatment. I'll support you through it. I just need to know you're serious." Jenny was quiet for a long time. George waited, listening to her breathe, listening to her wrestle with the choice in front of her. "There's something else," Jenny said finally, her voice shaking. "Something I haven't told you." George's stomach dropped. "What?" "The people I owe money to. They're not patient people, Dad. I thought selling the apartment would cover everything, but I was wrong. There's still money owed. A lot of money." How much? 300,000. The number hit George like a physical blow. $300,000? To who? I can't say their names. They made it very clear what would happen if I involved anyone else. I need you to know that if they find out I don't have a way to pay them back, things could get dangerous. Jenny's voice dropped to barely a whisper. For me, for Tyler, for anyone they think has money. George's mind raced. This wasn't just about addiction anymore. This was about safety, about protection, about threats that existed outside courtrooms and therapy sessions. Where are you right now? He asked sharply. At home. Why? Pack a bag. Essential items only. I'm sending a car to pick you up within the hour. You're staying somewhere safe until we figure this out. Dad, I can't just leave. I have work. I have... Jenny. George's tone left no room for argument. If what you're telling me is true, you're in danger. Tyler's in danger. I'm not taking chances with my family's safety. Pack your things. The car will be there soon. After he hung up, George sat motionless in his leather chair, staring at the framed photo on his desk. It showed him, his late wife, a young Jenny, and a toddler Tyler at a beach somewhere. Everyone was smiling. The sun was shining. Life was simple. When had everything gotten so complicated? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Tyler stood in the doorway, hair wet from a shower, wearing fresh clothes from the dresser that still fit him, though looser than they should have been. I heard you on the phone, Tyler said quietly. You were talking to Mom. George nodded. She told me about the people she owes money to. Did you know about them? Tyler's expression darkened. I knew there were debts. I didn't know they were dangerous. They might be. We need to be careful. George studied his grandson's face. How are you feeling? Confused, relieved, guilty. Tyler leaned against the doorframe. Is she really going to get help? I hope so. But right now, my priority is keeping both of you safe. George stood up, crossing to where Tyler stood. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Tyler met his grandfather's eyes. Despite everything, the lies, the secrets, the months of suffering, he saw only concern there, only love. Yes, Tyler said, I trust you. George squeezed his shoulder gently. Good, because things are about to get complicated, but we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore. Tyler nodded, trying to ignore the tight feeling in his chest. Part of him wanted to believe everything would be okay now. But another part, the part that had learned to expect disappointment, whispered that the worst might still be coming. Outside, clouds gathered over Greenwich. The temperature dropped. And somewhere across town, in an apartment that had once been Tyler's, a woman named Jenny threw clothes into a suitcase with shaking hands, wondering if the choices she'd made could ever be unmade. The best is still to come. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Jenny arrived at the mansion just after midnight. Tyler watched from the upstairs window as a black car pulled into the circular driveway, his mother stepping out with a small suitcase and an expression he'd seen too many times. Shame mixed with defiance, like a child caught stealing but unwilling to apologize. George met her at the door. Tyler couldn't hear their conversation from where he stood, but he saw the stiffness in his grandfather's posture, the way Jenny's shoulders curved inward, making herself smaller. They disappeared inside, their voices becoming muffled echoes through the old house. Tyler returned to his room but didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed, listening to footsteps in the hallway, doors opening and closing, the house settling around new tensions. Around 3 in the morning, everything finally went quiet. The next day broke grey and cold. Tyler woke to find his grandfather already dressed, sitting in the dining room with coffee and a newspaper. No sign of Jenny. She's still sleeping, George said without looking up. We talked for a long time last night. Tyler poured himself coffee, his hands steadier than they'd been in months. What did she say? A lot of things. Some true, some... George folded the newspaper carefully. She's very good at making excuses sound like reasons. Is she going to get help? She says she will, but saying and doing are different things. George finally met Tyler's eyes. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Tyler nodded. These people she owes money to, have they ever contacted you, threatened you, followed you? Tyler hesitated. A memory surfaced, unwelcome and sharp. 2 weeks ago, a man in a dark jacket had approached him outside the pizza place where he worked. The man had smiled, asked if he was Jenny's son, then walked away without another word. Tyler had told himself it meant nothing, just a coincidence. There was someone, Tyler admitted quietly. A few weeks ago, he knew who I was, knew Mom's name, but he didn't say anything threatening. He just looked at me. George's expression hardened. Did you tell your mother? No. I thought I was being paranoid. You weren't. George stood up, walking to the window. These people play psychological games. They want you to know they can reach you, that you're not safe. He turned back. That ends now. I'm hiring security. For this house, for you, for your mother. Grandpa, that's extreme. Maybe they were just... Tyler. George's voice cut through the protest. Your mother owes dangerous people $300,000. That's not a debt they'll forgive or forget. Until it's paid, we take precautions. The reality of it settled over Tyler like ice water. This wasn't just about his mother's mistakes anymore. This was about consequences that could reach beyond her, could touch him, could shatter the fragile safety he'd only just found. Footsteps on the stairs announced Jenny's arrival. She appeared in the doorway wearing borrowed clothes, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. Morning, she said softly, not quite meeting either of their eyes. George gestured to the chair. Sit. We need to talk. Jenny sat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The silence stretched uncomfortably until George broke it. I've been thinking about your situation all night. The debt, the people involved, the danger. He paused. I'm going to pay it off. Tyler's head snapped up. What? Jenny's eyes widened. Dad, no, that's too much. I can't ask you to... You're not asking, I'm telling you. George's tone left no room for argument. $300,000 is a significant amount, but it's not worth anyone's safety. I'll have my lawyer contact whoever holds your debt and arrange payment. You don't understand, Jenny said, her voice rising slightly. These aren't the kind of people who take checks and shake hands. They operate differently. Then I'll operate their way. Cash, if needed. Whatever it takes to close this chapter. George leaned forward. But here's what happens after. You check yourself into a treatment facility, a real one, residential, minimum 90 days. And you sign over any financial authority you have to a trust I'll establish for Tyler. Jenny's face crumpled. You're taking away my rights to my own son's money? I'm protecting him from losing anything else to your addiction. George's voice softened marginally. This isn't punishment, Jenny. This is protection for both of you. Tyler watched his mother's face cycle through emotions, anger, hurt, resignation. He'd seen this before, the moment when she had to choose between pride and survival. What if I say no, she whispered. Then you leave this house today and you handle your debts on your own. But Tyler stays here, under my protection, and you don't contact him until you're clean. George held her gaze. Those are the terms, non-negotiable. Jenny looked at Tyler, her eyes pleading for... What, support? Forgiveness? Permission to refuse? Tyler didn't know what she wanted, and he was too tired to guess. Mom, he said quietly, I think you should do it. I think you need help. Something in her expression broke. You think I'm a terrible mother. I think you're sick, and I think you need to get better before this kills you. Tyler's voice stayed gentle despite the words. I don't hate you. I'm tired of watching you hurt yourself. Hurt us. Tears spilled down Jenny's cheeks. I never meant for any of this to happen. When I made that first bet, I thought it was harmless, just a little fun. Then I won, and it felt amazing, and I wanted that feeling again and again. And before I knew it, I was in so deep I couldn't see a way out. There's always a way out, George said, but you have to take it. Jenny wiped her face with shaking hands. Okay, I'll go to treatment. I'll sign whatever papers you want, just... Please don't give up on me completely. George's expression softened. I'm not giving up on you. I'm fighting for you. There's a difference. The tension in the room eased slightly. Tyler felt something shift inside him, not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of understanding. His mother wasn't evil. She was broken, and maybe with help she could become whole again. I'll make some calls today, George said, standing. Get the financial side handled. Find a facility that can take you this week. In the meantime, you stay here. Both of you. Safe. Jenny nodded mutely. George left the room, his phone already in hand. Tyler and his mother sat across from each other in uncomfortable silence. I'm sorry, Jenny said finally. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I know. Tyler stood up. I'm going for a walk. Clear my head. He left before she could respond, grabbing a jacket from the hall closet and stepping into the cold November air. The property was vast, 10 acres of lawn and trees and stone paths that wound through carefully maintained gardens. Tyler followed one path aimlessly, just needing to move, needing to think. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We heard your grandfather's getting involved. Smart man. But make sure he knows. We want our money by Friday, no extensions. Tyler's blood ran cold. Friday was 3 days away. How did they already know about George's plan? Were they watching the house? Had they tapped phones? He looked around the empty gardens, suddenly feeling exposed. The trees that had seemed peaceful moments ago now looked like hiding places. The distant sound of traffic became threatening. Every shadow held potential danger. Tyler turned back toward the house, walking faster. He needed to tell George, needed to show him the message. He stopped short. Standing by the front entrance, partially hidden by a stone column, was a man in a dark jacket. The same man from outside the pizza place. He wasn't doing anything threatening, just standing there, watching. When he saw Tyler looking, he smiled slightly and tipped an imaginary hat before walking away toward the road. Tyler ran the rest of the way inside, his heart hammering. He found George in the study on the phone with someone, discussing account transfers and wire protocols. Grandpa, Tyler interrupted, breathless. They're here. They know about the money. They want it by Friday. George's face went pale. He ended his call abruptly. Show me. Tyler handed over his phone, showing the text. George read it twice, his jaw tightening with each word. And there was someone outside. The same man from before. He was just watching. George moved to the window, scanning the property. The man was gone, but his message was clear. We can reach you whenever we want. Call the security company, George said, his voice controlled but strained. Tell them I need people here within the hour. Armed, trained. I don't care what it costs. Tyler made the call, his hands shaking slightly. This was real now. Not abstract danger, but concrete threat. People who knew where they lived, who could send messages and watch from shadows, who wanted hundreds of thousands of dollars in 3 days. After the security arrangements were made, Tyler found himself back in his room, staring at the ceiling. The safety he'd felt just yesterday seemed fragile now, paper-thin. One text message had shattered the illusion of protection. Downstairs, he could hear George making more calls, his voice firm and commanding, organizing defenses like a general preparing for battle. Jenny's door remained closed, her silence louder than words. And somewhere out there, people waited. People who'd shown they could reach into Tyler's life whenever they chose. People who measured debts in fear and pain, not just dollars. Tyler closed his eyes, trying to find calm. But all he could see was that man's smile. That casual, confident smile that said, "We own you now, all of you." The house felt smaller suddenly, the walls less solid, the future less certain. And the price of his mother's mistakes had never felt heavier. Wednesday morning arrived with frost covering the windows and security guards stationed at every entrance to the property. Tyler had barely slept, jumping at every sound, every shadow. The house that had once felt like sanctuary now felt like a fortress under siege. George spent most of Tuesday arranging the money transfer, converting assets to cash, coordinating with banks, ensuring everything would be ready by Friday's deadline. He moved with the efficiency of a man who'd built an empire, but Tyler could see the strain in his grandfather's eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought no one was watching. Jenny remained mostly in her room. Tyler passed her door several times, hearing soft crying, phone calls to treatment facilities, the sound of someone dismantling their life piece by piece to rebuild it from scratch. At 11 a.m., George's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker, Tyler and Jenny both present in the study. Mr. Patterson. The voice was smooth, almost pleasant. I understand you'd like to settle your daughter's debt. That's correct, George said evenly. 300,000 cash by Friday. I'll need instructions for delivery. A soft chuckle. Direct, I appreciate that, but there's been a small complication. Tyler's stomach dropped. What complication? George asked. Interest. Your daughter missed several payment deadlines. Each one carries a penalty. The total owed is now $420,000. That's an additional $120,000 in 2 weeks, George said, his voice hardening. That's not interest. That's extortion. Call it what you like, Mr. Patterson. Those are the terms. $420 by Friday, or we start collecting in other ways. A pause. You have a beautiful home. 10 acres, if I'm not mistaken. And your grandson, Tyler, isn't it? He has such a bright future ahead of him. Would be a shame if anything interrupted that. The threat hung in the air, unsubtle and clear. Tyler felt ice spread through his chest. These people had researched them, knew details, knew exactly how to apply pressure. You'll have your money, George said quietly. Friday noon, where? We'll send coordinates the night before. Come alone. Bring the cash. No police, no security, no tricks. Just an old man making things right for his family. The voice softened mockingly. We're reasonable people, Mr. Patterson. We just want what we're owed. The line went dead. George set the phone down carefully, his composure intact, but his face ashen. 420,000. Dad, I'm so sorry, Jenny whispered. I never thought it would get this big. I never thought... What you thought doesn't matter now, George interrupted, not unkindly. What matters is ending this safely. He looked at Tyler. I need you to promise me something. Anything. If something goes wrong on Friday, if I don't come back, or if anything happens, there's a lawyer named Michael Chen in Manhattan. His number is in my desk drawer. You call him immediately. He has instructions for everything. The house, the money, your future, everything's protected. Grandpa, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. You'll give them the money and they'll leave us alone. George's expression said he didn't quite believe that, but he nodded anyway. Of course, I'm just being cautious. The next 2 days passed in tense waiting. Security guards rotated shifts. George finalized the cash withdrawal, a process that required multiple bank visits and discreet arrangements. Tyler tried to maintain normalcy, even attended one online class, but his mind was elsewhere. Jenny started packing for the treatment facility. She'd been accepted to a place in upstate New York, residential program, 90 days minimum. She'd leave Saturday morning, one day after George's meeting with the people she owed. Thursday night, the coordinates arrived, an industrial area near the docks, 40 minutes from Greenwich. George studied the location on his computer, his face grim. It's isolated, he said. No nearby businesses, no witnesses. Then don't go alone, Tyler insisted. Take security, take someone. I can't risk angering them. If they think I brought backup, they might... George stopped himself. I have to play by their rules. Just this once. This is insane. You're walking into a trap. Maybe, or maybe they really do just want their money. George squeezed Tyler's shoulder. I've negotiated with difficult people my entire life. I know how to read a room, how to stay calm. I'll be fine. Tyler wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that everything would work out, but something felt wrong, too easy, too convenient. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. George dressed in simple clothes, jeans, a jacket, nothing that screamed wealth. The money was packed in a black duffel bag, $420,000 in cash, heavy and damning. At 11:30, George prepared to leave. Jenny hugged him tightly, whispering apologies he'd heard a dozen times. Tyler walked his grandfather to the car, that same luxury sedan that had driven them from the university parking lot just days ago. I'll be back in 2 hours, George said. 3 at most. If I'm not back by 3 p.m., call Michael Chen. Grandpa, Tyler, promise me. I promise. George got in the car. The engine started. Tyler watched him drive down the long driveway, past the security gates, toward the main road. The black duffel bag sat in the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to detonate. Tyler went back inside, where time moved like honey. Noon came and went. 12:30, 1 p.m. He tried to distract himself with television, with his phone, with anything that would make the minutes pass faster. Jenny sat nearby, equally anxious, equally helpless. At 2:15, George's phone, the one he'd left behind on the desk, buzzed with a text. Tyler picked it up, his hands shaking. The message was from an unknown number. Change of plans. Tell your grandfather to bring an additional $200,000 if he wants to see his grandson alive. Tyler's blood turned to ice. His grandson. They meant him. He looked toward the window just as a black van pulled into the driveway, moving fast. The security guards at the gate were already down. Tyler could see them lying motionless on the ground. "Jenny, run!" Tyler shouted, but it was too late. The front door exploded inward. 3 men rushed inside, moving with practiced efficiency. Tyler tried to fight, tried to run, but something hard hit the back of his head and the world tilted sideways. He heard Jenny screaming, heard furniture crashing, heard his own voice saying, "No, no, no," as strong hands grabbed him, dragged him toward the van. The last thing Tyler saw before darkness claimed him was his mother being held back by one of the men, her face twisted in horror, her voice calling his name over and over, like a prayer that wouldn't be answered. Then nothing. When Tyler's consciousness flickered back, seconds or minutes or hours later, he couldn't tell. He was in motion. The van, moving fast, his hands were bound. His head throbbed with sharp, sickening pain. He tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't work properly. Tried to move, but his body felt distant, disconnected. Through blurred vision, he could see 2 men in the front seats, talking quietly, almost casually, as if they were driving to pick up groceries instead of holding a 19-year-old hostage. "The old man should be at the coordinates by now," one said. "He'll pay. They always pay when we have the kid." Tyler's mind screamed at him to stay alert, to remember details, to find a way out. But the pain in his head was overwhelming, pulling him back down into darkness. His last coherent thought before unconsciousness took him again was simple and terrifying. "Grandpa doesn't know. He's waiting at the wrong place with the wrong amount of money, and they have me." The van drove on through the Friday afternoon traffic, carrying Tyler toward an unknown destination, toward a ransom his grandfather couldn't pay, toward a nightmare that had only just begun. And in an abandoned industrial building 40 minutes away, George Patterson sat in his car with a duffel bag full of cash, checking his watch, wondering why no one had arrived yet. Wondering why his phone wasn't ringing, wondering why everything suddenly felt so terribly, devastatingly wrong. Tyler woke to the sound of water dripping somewhere in the darkness. His head pounded, his wrists burned where plastic zip ties cut into skin. Slowly, his vision adjusted to the dim light filtering through a crack in the boarded windows. He was in some kind of warehouse, empty, cold. The floor beneath him was concrete, stained with oil and years of neglect. Across the space, he could make out two figures, the men from the van, talking in low voices, occasionally glancing his way. Tyler tested the restraints, tight, no give. His phone was gone, his jacket too. He wore only a thin shirt against the November cold seeping through the walls. One of the men noticed him stirring. "He's awake. Call it in." A phone call was made, brief, coded. Then silence again. Tyler's mind raced. How long had he been unconscious? Where was his grandfather? Had George realized what happened yet? The questions spiraled, each one more terrifying than the last. 15 minutes passed. Maybe 20. Then Tyler heard it, a car pulling up outside, doors slamming, footsteps approaching. The warehouse door opened with a metallic screech. George Patterson walked in, and Tyler's heart nearly stopped. His grandfather's face was pale but composed, his eyes scanning the space until they found Tyler. Something flickered across his expression, relief, rage, fear, all compressed into a single moment before the mask of calm returned. "Let him go," George said simply. A third man emerged from the shadows, older, well-dressed, carrying himself with the casual authority of someone used to being obeyed. "Mr. Patterson, glad you could join us. You have your money, all of it. 420,000, just as we agreed." George's voice was steady. "Release my grandson." "About that." The man smiled. "Circumstances changed. Your daughter's debt has grown. We're now looking at 620,000 total." "That's not what we agreed." "Markets fluctuate, Mr. Patterson. Interest compounds. Surely a businessman like yourself understands." The man gestured to Tyler. "Of course you could walk away. Leave the boy. We'd be happy to discuss alternative payment arrangements with him. He's young, strong, could work off the debt in, 5 or 6 years." George's jaw tightened. Tyler could see the calculation happening behind his grandfather's eyes, the assessment of options, the weighing of risks. "I don't have another 200,000 in cash," George said carefully. "Not here, not today." "Then I suppose we have a problem." "Wait." A new voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned. Jenny stood in the doorway, breathing hard, her clothes disheveled. Behind her, Tyler could see police cars, their lights off, officers moving into position with silent precision. "I called them," Jenny said, her voice shaking but determined. "I called the police the second they took Tyler. I told them everything, the debt, the threats, the extortion, all of it." The well-dressed man's expression darkened. "You stupid woman. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah," Jenny said, tears streaming down her face. "I finally did something right. Everything happened fast then. Officers rushed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. The 3 men tried to run, but exits were blocked. Within seconds, they were on the ground, hands behind their backs, reading of rights echoing through the empty warehouse. An officer cut Tyler's restraints. He stumbled to his feet, his legs weak, and immediately his grandfather was there, arms around him, holding him steady. "You're okay," George whispered fiercely. "You're okay." Tyler nodded against his grandfather's shoulder, unable to speak past the knot in his throat. Jenny approached slowly, cautiously, like someone afraid of being turned away. "Tyler, Tyler pulled back from George and looked at his mother, really looked at her. She'd risked everything by calling the police. These people could have connections, could retaliate. She'd known that and done it anyway. "You saved me," Tyler said quietly. "I had to." Jenny's voice broke. "I've failed you so many times. I couldn't fail you again, not when it mattered most." A detective approached, asking questions, taking statements. The story spilled out. The gambling addiction, the escalating debts, the threats, the kidnapping. The well-dressed man and his associates were led away in handcuffs, still protesting, still threatening lawyers, and consequences that would never materialize. Hours later, after statements were given and reports were filed, the Patterson family sat together in George's study. Tyler wrapped in a blanket despite the warmth, still processing everything. Jenny on the couch, exhausted. George by the window, staring out at the property where security guards now walked with renewed vigilance. "The detective said they've been investigating this group for months," George said finally. "Your testimony, Jenny, yours and Tyler's, it might be enough to build a real case. Get them off the streets." "Good," Jenny said softly. "Maybe something positive can come from this mess I created." "You also ended it," Tyler pointed out. "You could have stayed quiet, protected yourself, but you didn't." Jenny met her son's eyes. "I'm still going to treatment. Tomorrow, like we planned. Maybe even more than 90 days if they'll take me. I need to fix what's broken inside me. Not for Dad's approval or for the courts. For me and for you." "I know," Tyler said. George turned from the window. "We all made mistakes here. I should have seen the signs earlier, should have been more present in both your lives instead of hiding behind work and money." He looked at Jenny. "I failed you as a father somewhere along the way. Maybe if I'd paid more attention, shown you that love wasn't conditional on success, you wouldn't have felt the need to chase validation in all the wrong places." "Dad, let me finish." George's voice was gentle. "I'm not excusing what you did. Your choices are yours. But I played a role in the environment that made those choices feel necessary, and I'm sorry for that." The three of them sat in silence, letting the weight of confession and forgiveness settle around them like snow. "What happens now?" Tyler asked. "Now we rebuild," George said. "You go back to school, really go back, not working 3 jobs and sleeping in cars, but actually being a student. Living on campus in a proper dorm, focusing on your education. I'll cover everything." "I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking, I'm insisting." George's tone left no room for argument. "And your mother goes to treatment, gets healthy, learns to live without the addiction controlling her every choice. When she's ready, we'll help her rebuild her life too. New job, new apartment, new start." "And you?" Jenny asked her father. George smiled slightly. "I learned to be a better grandfather, a better father. I learned that family isn't about control or money or fixing people. It's about being present, being honest, being willing to fail and try again." 3 months later, Tyler stood in his dorm room at the university, hanging up a photo his grandfather had given him. It showed the 3 of them, George, Jenny and Tyler, taken during a visit to Jenny's treatment facility. They weren't posing perfectly or smiling for the camera. They just looked real, tired, healing, together. Tyler's roommate walked in. "That your family?" "Yeah," Tyler said. "It's complicated." "Whose isn't?" The roommate grinned and tossed him a basketball. "Come on, there's a pickup game starting in 10 minutes. Tyler caught the ball, feeling its familiar weight in his hands. When was the last time he'd played basketball? Before the car, before the jobs, before everything fell apart. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go." As he walked across campus toward the courts, Tyler thought about all the ways his life had changed in just a few months. The apartment he'd lost, the safety he'd found. The mother who was learning to be sober. The grandfather who was learning to be present. He thought about the people who'd tried to break his family and how, instead, they'd somehow brought them closer together. About how sometimes the worst moments reveal who people really are when it matters most. His phone buzzed. A text from George. "How's the first day back?" Tyler smiled and typed back, "Good, really good." Another text arrived, this one from his mother at the facility. 75 days sober, 3/4 of the way through. Miss you, proud of you. Tyler replied, "Proud of you too, Mom." He pocketed his phone and joined the game, running and laughing and living like the 19-year-old he was supposed to be. The past couldn't be erased. The scars wouldn't disappear, but they didn't have to define everything. Somewhere in Greenwich, George Patterson sat at his desk, looking at the same photo Tyler had hung in his dorm. He touched it gently, remembering how close he'd come to losing everything that mattered. Money could be lost and earned again. Apartments could be bought and sold. But family, real family, honest and present and fighting for each other, that was worth more than any fortune he'd ever built. And for the first time in years, George understood the difference. The evening settled over the city, bringing with it the promise of tomorrow. Lives were still messy, problems weren't all solved. Jenny still had weeks of treatment ahead. Tyler still had trauma to process. George still had relationships to rebuild. But they were trying, together, and sometimes that's the bravest thing a family can do. Not perfection, not pretending, just showing up, being honest, and choosing each other even when it's hard. Because in the end, that's what love really means. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of people who refuse to give up on each other, no matter how dark the night becomes. And as Tyler made his first basket of the game, his laughter carrying across the campus quad, he understood something profound. He wasn't defined by what he'd lost or what he'd survived. He was defined by what he chose to become next. And that future, that belonged entirely to him. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if stories like this touch your heart, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring hope to those who need it most. Thank you for being part of this journey with us.